Coming up on 5 Minute News. Trump insurrection trial date set for March 2024. Pope says US conservatives have replaced faith with ideology. And state of emergency in Florida ahead of Idalia's expected landfall. It's Tuesday, August 29. I'm Anthony Davis. The disgraced former President Donald Trump will stand trial in March 2024 for trying to overturn his 2020 presidential election defeat, one day before Republican voters in more than a dozen US states will decide whether to give him a chance to recapture the White House. US Judge Tanya Chutkan on Monday set a trial date of March 4th for the federal case in Washington, one of 4 criminal prosecutions Donald Trump faces. That is one day before Super Tuesday, a potentially decisive date in the Republican presidential nominating contest, when states from Maine to California will hold their nominating contests. Opinion polls show Trump leading his rivals by a wide margin. Chutkan's decision means that Trump will likely have to stand trial in at least 3 separate criminal cases while he is campaigning for the party's nomination to take on Democratic President Joe Biden in the November 2024 election. A trial date in a 4th criminal case has not yet been set. He's also a defendant in 3 civil trials scheduled to take place over the coming 6 months. Trump's lawyers had pressed for an April 2026 trial date, but Chutkan said they did not need that long to prepare. Mr. Trump will have to make the trial date work, regardless of his schedule, Chutkan said. Trump said he would appeal, but legal experts say scheduling decisions cannot be appealed until a verdict has been reached. Trump's lawyer, John Lauro, said he would abide by Chutkan's schedule. Pope Francis has blasted the backwardness of some conservatives in the US Catholic Church, saying they've replaced faith with ideology and that a correct understanding of Catholic doctrine allows for change over time. Francis's comments were an acknowledgement of the divisions in the US Catholic Church, which has been split between progressives and conservatives who long found support in the doctrinaire papacies of St. John Paul II and Benedict XVI, particularly on issues of abortion and same-sex marriage. Many conservatives have blasted Francis's emphasis instead on social justice issues, such as the environment and the poor, while also branding as heretical his opening to letting divorced and civilly remarried Catholics receive the sacraments. Francis made the comments in a private meeting with Portuguese members of his Jesuit religious order while visiting Lisbon on the 5th of August, but a transcript was published of the encounter yesterday. During the meeting, a Portuguese Jesuit told Francis he had suffered during a recent sabbatical year in the United States because he came across many Catholics, including some US bishops, who criticized Francis's 10-year papacy as well as today's Jesuits. The 86-year-old Argentine acknowledged his point, saying there was a very strong, organized, reactionary attitude in the US Church, which he called backward. He also warned that such an attitude leads to a climate of closure, which was erroneous. Francis has previously acknowledged the criticism directed at him from some US conservatives, once quipping that it was an honor to be attacked by Americans. Tropical storm Idalia lashed western Cuba and was expected to strengthen into a major hurricane as it crawled toward Florida's Gulf Coast, where officials ordered evacuations and urged residents to prepare for an expected Wednesday landfall. Idalia was churning at about 80 miles off the western tip of Cuba as it barreled north, packing maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, the Miami-based National Hurricane Center said in its latest advisory. The storm's growing intensity and its northerly track put some 14 million Floridians under hurricane and tropical storm warnings along the Gulf of Mexico. Authorities warn that the chief hazard to human life posed by the storm would be from surging walls of seawater driven inland by high winds, inundating low-lying coastal areas. Storm surge warnings were posted for hundreds of miles of Gulf Coast shoreline, from the Sarasota area north through Tampa and stretching to the sport fishing haven of Indian Pass. Buckle up for this one, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said during a news conference on Monday afternoon, adding that he had spoken to U.S. President Joe Biden and the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Deanne Criswell. Do what you've got to do. You still have time today. You still have time for most of tomorrow, he said, urging Floridians to prepare for the potentially dangerous conditions. The extreme weather rampaging around the globe will become the norm within a decade without dramatic climate action, the world's leading climate scientists have said. The heat waves, wildfires and floods were just the tip of the iceberg compared with even worse effects to come, they said, with limitations in climate models leaving the world flying partially blind into the future. With fears that humanity's relentless carbon emissions have finally pushed the climate crisis into a new and accelerating phase of destruction, consensus from more than 40 scientists said that the rise in global temperature was entirely in line with decades of warnings and was being boosted this year by the return of the El Niño climate pattern. But they said that people and places were more vulnerable to extreme weather than expected and were suffering effects never previously experienced as climate records are shattered. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.